single mom was shot protecting a stranger, unaware he was the mafia boss himself. The air at Pier 3 station always smelled like ozone, wet concrete, and the faint, greasy scent of the pretzel kiosk that closed at 6. It was just past 8 o'clock, and the fluorescent lights cast a sickly green pallor on the few commuters waiting for the uptown train. Gray Harbor in November was a special kind of miserable. The cold came off the water and sank right into your bones. "My hand's cold, Mommy," Piper murmured, her small fingers tightening in mine. "I know, baby. Squeeze tight." I adjusted the strap of the tote bag on my shoulder, the weight of our borrowed library books a familiar comfort. "We'll be at the library soon. You can pick the first story." Piper was 9, going on 40. She had my eyes but her father's solemnity, a seriousness that sometimes worried me. At 29, I felt like I was still catching up to her. Being a single mom in this city meant running a constant, frantic marathon. The library's late-night Thursday hours were our sanctuary, our one weekly ritual that felt like hours alone, a quiet rebellion against the grind of my waitress job and the bills stacked on our tiny kitchen counter. The rumble of the approaching train vibrated through the soles of my worn boots. Piper brightened, pulling me forward. "It's here." That's when I saw them. It wasn't a fight. Fights are loud, messy, full of drunken shouting. This was quiet, precise, and utterly terrifying. A man in a tailored gray coat was flanked by 2 others. They were larger, dressed in identical black parkas, their faces obscured by ski masks. They moved him, not pushed him, toward the shadowed end of the platform, away from the sparse crowd. The man in the gray coat moved smoothly, not struggling, but his stillness was a warning. Then I saw the glint of steel. It wasn't a knife. One of the masked men drew a pistol. It was long, black, and had a thick cylinder on the end, a silencer. My blood turned to ice. This was not a mugging. This was an execution. I didn't think. There was no time for thought. There was only Piper. Piper, behind the kiosk. Now, my voice was a harsh whisper. I shoved her, hard, toward the solid steel box that sold newspapers and gum. "Don't move. Don't look." She stumbled, her eyes wide with confusion, but she obeyed. The second she was clear, my body acted on an instinct I did not know I possessed. It was a stupid animal calculation. Her life, mine. The choice was already made. I launched myself forward, moving between the gun and the man in the gray coat. I heard the sound, a heavy thwip. It was nothing like the movies. It was a flat, pneumatic cough. Simultaneously, a hot, tearing fire ripped through my left side. It felt like being stabbed with a poker straight from a fireplace. The force of it spun me around. I gasped, a soundless scream, my hand flying to my ribs. It came away wet. The world tilted, the green lights of the station smearing into streaks. I was falling. The train horn blared, a deafening shriek that drowned out everything. The platform vibrated violently. Brakes screamed, a horrible metallic protest that filled the air with the smell of hot, burnt steel and a cloud of acrid smoke. A hand clamped onto my arm, yanking me up from the ground. It was him, the stranger, the man I had shielded. He didn't speak. He didn't look at me. His eyes were scanning the smoke-filled platform. He dragged me, my feet stumbling uselessly, toward the arriving train. He shoved me into the dark, narrow space between the 2 coupling cars. It was a greasy, claustrophobic gap that smelled of rust and cold metal. He pressed his body against mine, pinning me to the cold steel. His hand covered my mouth. It was rough, warm, and demanding. He put his other finger to his lips, his eyes locking onto mine, silent. Above the diminishing hiss of the brakes, I heard them. Thwip, thwip, thwip. 3 more shots, fired blindly into the smoke. I heard the sharp ping of bullets ricocheting off the kiosk, the very kiosk where my daughter was hiding. A sob of pure terror choked me, muffled by his hand. My legs gave out. The fire in my side was no longer a line. It was an exploding sun. The man cursed, a low, guttural sound. The train doors were sliding shut. He didn't hesitate. He hooked one arm under my knees, the other around my back, and lifted me as if I weighed nothing. It was not gentle. It was efficient. He saw something I did not, a dark rectangle on the side of the car, a maintenance hatch. He lunged, throwing his entire body and mine with it, into that opening. We landed hard on a metal floor. The train doors hissed shut, sealing the platform away. And then I heard it, the last sound from the outside world. It was a high, thin wail that shattered my entire existence. "Mommy, Mommy." "Piper!" I tried to scream, to fight, to get back to her, but the man's weight was on me, holding me down as the train lurched into motion. I saw her for 1 second, a flash of her pink coat through the grimy gap. A transit employee had grabbed her, holding her back from the platform edge. Her face was a white blur of absolute terror. Then the tunnel swallowed us whole. Darkness, complete, suffocating darkness that smelled of diesel fumes and old oil. The car rocked, the click-clack of the wheels, a monstrous rhythm beneath us. I was on the floor, my back propped against the man's chest. His arm was a steel band around me, his other hand pressing something thick and heavy against my wounded side. I was shaking, dissolving. "My daughter," I wept, the words thick in my throat. "Piper, he has her. Let me go. I have to." "She's safe," he said. His voice was low, gravelly, and radiated a calm that felt obscene. "They won't touch her. They wanted me." "How do you know you don't know?" He shifted, and in a sliver of light from a crack in the door, I saw his face for the first time. He was young, maybe my age, maybe a little older, sharp jaw, dark hair, but his eyes were not blue, not gray. They were the color of steel, cold and utterly focused. His hand was braced on the wall near my head, on the inside of his wrist. I saw a tattoo. It was just lines, thin and black, a wolf, rendered in sharp, minimalist angles. It meant nothing to me, but it felt like a brand, a mark of something separate from the world I knew. The train slowed, not at a station, but in the middle of a tunnel. He hauled me to my feet. "We move. Can you walk?" "I don't know." I tried, but my left leg wouldn't take my weight. He didn't wait for an answer. He swept me up again, carrying me bridal style. He forced open a technical door I hadn't seen, and an alarm should have sounded, but it remained silent. We were in a damp service corridor, lit by bare yellow bulbs. My blood was leaving a trail. We burst out onto a cobbled side street. Rain was falling now. A car, a sedan, materialized from the night. It was black, not shiny, but a flat, light-absorbing matte. It had no license plates. It did not pull up. It skidded to a halt, the tires smoking. The passenger door flew open. A man with a shaved head and a nose that had been broken more than once leaned out. He was all neck and shoulders. "Get in. What the hell happened, boss?" "Boss?" The man carrying me, the man with the steel eyes, deposited me in the back seat. "Hold this," he commanded, shoving a wad of gauze from a medical kit into my hand and pressing it to my side, hard. He slid in beside me. The car launched forward before his door was even closed, throwing me against the plush leather. The car smelled like new leather and old metal. A paradox. My vision was shrinking to a pinprick. The cabin was dark, the dashboard a low glow. I was going to die in this strange car, away from my daughter. My eyes fell to the floor mat. Something had fallen from his pocket. A slim, black leather case. It was flipped open, the gold embossing catching the dash lights. An identification folio. A name. Luca Valerian. The name was unfamiliar, but the feel of it. The gold on black, the car with no plates, the man called Boss. It was heavy. It smelled like power and money and things that happened in shadows. I don't remember the rest of the ride. I woke up to the smell of salt and antiseptic. My side was a tight, dull, managed ache. I was alive. This was not Gray Harbor General. The walls were century-old brick, the ceiling high and crossed with massive wooden beams from an older life. I could hear the rhythmic thump of waves hitting pilings. I was in a bed, the sheets impossibly soft. White gauze curtains drifted in a breeze from a partially open window that looked out onto the dark, churning water of the bay. Medical equipment, sleek and modern, beeped softly beside me. I was in a fortress, an old shipyard, repurposed, the North Shore Recovery Station, though I wouldn't know its name for hours. This was not a place for someone with my insurance. This was a place for secrets. A figure shifted in the armchair in the corner, moving from shadow into the dim light. Him, Luca Valerian. His gray coat was gone. He wore a simple black shirt, the sleeves rolled up. The wolf on his wrist was stark against his skin. He was watching me, those steel eyes unblinking. The world was swimming, the gentle pull of painkillers trying to drag me back under. But I had one thought, one anchor, one word. Piper. My voice was a dry croak. Where's Piper? He leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. He did not touch me. He just looked at me, and the world seemed to stop. His voice was deep, resonant, and it cut through the fog like a lighthouse beam. Safe. I tried to speak, to protest, to demand. He said it again, not louder, but with an absolute finality that chilled me and comforted me all at once. Safe, I swear. I was a mother. I knew a lie when I heard one. This was not a lie. This was a vow. I let the darkness take me, and I hated him for it. The second time I woke, the light was silver. It poured in from a wall made entirely of glass, illuminating a room that was half high-end clinic, half minimalist luxury suite, outside. The gray harbor bay churned, a churning metallic gray under a heavy sky. I was high above the water, looking down on the wharf. My side was a tight, localized throb, neatly bandaged. The air smelled of salt and clean linen. A woman with sharp cheekbones and blonde hair pulled into a severe bun stood by the window, observing the grounds below. She wore a tailored gray dress that looked more like a uniform. "You are awake." "Good." Her voice was precise, with a faint echo of an Eastern European accent. "The doctor is pleased with your recovery. The bullet passed clean, though it grazed 2 ribs. You are fortunate." "Piper," I managed, my throat dry. "She is safe." The woman turned, her eyes an assessing blue. "My name is Yana Volkov. I am the coordinator for this facility. You are at the North Shore Recovery Station, the private medical wing of the Valerian Consortium." Consortium? The word felt foreign, expensive. It belonged to the world of the man whose name I'd seen, Luca Valerian. "I want to see her," I insisted, trying to push myself up. A sharp, searing pain shot from my side, and I fell back against the pillows with a gasp. "You will," Yana said, not unkindly. "Mr. Valerian is managing the fallout from last night. He will be here shortly." She gestured toward the window, and I followed her gaze. Far below, at the main gate of the shipyard complex, 2 dark sedans were parked. Men in navy blue windbreakers, the kind that screamed federal, were speaking to the guards. "Who are they?" "The Bureau of Urban Integrity," Yana said, her voice devoid of emotion. "The BUI. They are attempting to secure the perimeter. They received an anonymous tip that an associate of Mr. Valerian was injured in the Pier 3 incident." "An associate?" The blood drained from my face. "They think that's me. I was taking my daughter to the library." "The media is reporting a gang-related shooting," Yana stated flatly. "The Bureau enjoys simple narratives." She paused, then looked directly at me. "A word of advice. Miss Quinlan, do not trust everything they tell you. The BUI is, complicated. Their protection is not always what it seems." Before I could process that, the door opened with a near-silent electronic hiss. Luca Valerian entered. In the daylight, he was different. He was tall and lean in a way that spoke of disciplined strength, not hunger. He wore a simple white shirt, the sleeves rolled to his forearms, revealing the stark, angular wolf tattoo on his wrist. His dark hair was combed back, and his face was sharp, angular, and controlled. He dismissed Yana with a slight nod. The door clicked shut, leaving us alone. The air in the room suddenly felt thin. He stopped at the foot of my bed. A tight, humorless smile barely touched his lips. It did not reach his eyes. Those steel-gray eyes were just as I remembered. "Miss Quinlan?" His voice was low, resonant. "I owe you an apology. You were dragged into a situation that was not your own." He inclined his head. "You saved my life." "I don't care about your apology," I snapped, the panic rising again, cold and sharp. "You swore. Where is my daughter? I want to see her. Now." "I keep my promises." "That is not an answer. Where is she?" I was frantic, my voice rising. "What have you done with her?" He didn't react to my panic. He simply produced a thin, black tablet from under his arm. He didn't hand it to me. He held it up, tapping the screen. A live video feed illuminated. The timestamp in the corner confirmed it was happening right now. The room was bright, filled with books and colorful art supplies, and sitting on a soft rug, her back partially to the camera, was Piper. My heart seized, then flooded with a relief so violent it made me dizzy. She was safe. She was wearing a new blue sweatshirt. She was intensely focused on a massive, complicated Lego tower, handing pieces to a young woman with a kind face who sat beside her. I saw Piper laugh, a quick, happy sound that the tablet's microphone picked up clearly. "Where is that?" I whispered, my hand reaching out as if I could touch the screen. "Studio 17, he replied. "It is our internal community school for the families who work at the consortium. The woman with her is Elena, one of our educators. Piper ate oatmeal with strawberries for breakfast 2 hours ago. She slept in a private suite near Yana's office. As far as she is concerned, she is at a very exclusive, very exciting new day camp." He had kept his word. She was safe. She was laughing. The relief solidified, cooling instantly into a hard, cold fury. I tore my eyes from the screen to look at him. "You kidnapped my daughter." "I secured her," he corrected, his voice hardening almost imperceptibly. "There is a significant difference." "A difference. You took my child from a public platform away from me." "And if I had left her," he countered. Switching off the tablet, the image of Piper vanished, leaving a black, reflective void. "The men who shot you were not street thugs. They were professionals. They work for a man named Dorian Vex." The name meant nothing to me. "He and I are competitors," Luca continued, his tone flat, as if discussing shipping manifests. "We are in disagreement over the future of dark logistics on the East Coast." "Dark logistics, what? Smuggling?" "Moving assets that powerful people do not want seen. Vex wanted me dead. He failed. Because of you. He failed. And now, you are a problem he must solve." "Me?" I shook my head, the motion making me wince. "I didn't see their faces. I don't know anything." "You survived," he stated, as if that were the only crime that mattered. "You were there. You are a loose end. He does not know what you saw or what I might have said to you. To a man like Vex, an unknown is a threat. He cannot and will not allow you to exist." My blood ran cold. "I'll go to the police. The real police. Not your security, not the BUI. I'll tell them. I'll tell them I was mugged. And when Vex's men find you at your apartment or on your way to work," he anticipated my every thought. "What about the BUI Yana told you they are outside? Last week, a BUI task force conducted a no-knock raid on the wrong address over in the Warren. They were looking for contraband. They found a family of 3. They threw a flashbang into a child's bedroom. The little girl suffered third-degree burns." He took a step closer, his shadow falling across the bed. "Their laws, Miss Quinlan, are slow. They are arbitrary, and I promise you, they will not protect you or your daughter in time. Vex will find you before the ink is dry on their first report." I hated him. I hated him because he was right. I hated the cold, brutal logic of this world he had dragged me into. The door hissed open again. It was the man from the car, the one with the broken nose. Cade. He held a clipboard and addressed only Luca. "Boss, the platform was wiped clean before BUI sealed it. No casings, no usable footage from the transit cams. The 2 shooters have vanished. Check the usual bolt holes. Nothing. They're deep in the wind. And the media? Luca asked. Cade grimaced. Vex is already poisoning the well. The Gray Harbor Tribune posted an article 20 minutes ago. Mysterious woman caught in Pier 3 crossfire. It's already hinting you were the target and she was an associate who got caught. He finally looked at me, his eyes flat and devoid of pity. They're painting you as bait. Ma'am, he's putting your name in the water to see what circles. It makes it easier for him to finish the job. This was a nightmare. No, I said, my voice shaking. I'm not bait. I'm not staying here. This is your world, not mine. I threw the sheets off, ignoring the fire in my side, and planted my feet on the cold floor. I want my daughter. We are going home. To our apartment. Now. No. The word was quiet, but it was absolute. It was not a request. You can't keep me here. You can't keep us. Your apartment is the first place Vex will look, Luca said, his patience visibly thinning. He likely has men on your street right now. You cannot go home. It is a death sentence. Then what? I cried, tears of rage and helplessness blurring my vision. I stay here, in your gilded cage. My daughter stays in your studio. I am not one of your associates. He watched me, a long, calculating silence filling the room. He seemed to be weighing calculations I couldn't begin to understand. You are right, he said at last, surprising me. You should not be separated from your daughter, and you should be in a home. He paused. So it is better to bring home to you, for a while. He gestured to the door. I grabbed the IV pole, using it as a crutch, and followed him, refusing the arm he didn't offer. We went down a short, private hall to an elevator. It chimed softly, and the steel doors opened. We went up 2 floors. The doors opened, not onto a corridor, but directly into a living space. My breath caught. It was an apartment, a vast, stunning apartment built into the rafters of the old shipyard. The wall facing the bay was entirely glass. The floors were warm, dark wood. A full-sized, state-of-the-art kitchen flowed into a living area with a deep, comfortable-looking sofa. 2 doors led off to what I assumed were bedrooms. It was the most beautiful place I had ever been, and it was a prison. This level has its own air filtration, reinforced walls, and a dedicated elevator, Luca said, his voice echoing slightly in the large space. Yana is having your and Piper's essential belongings collected from your apartment, discreetly. No one will know you are here. You're moving me in. It was a flat statement. I'm keeping you safe, he corrected. He walked to the massive quartz kitchen island. He placed a single, matte black card on the counter. This is your key. It is digitally coded to this floor in the medical wing. No one else has access. Not Cade, not Yana, not even me, unless you authorize it. I stared at the key. Embossed in a faint, shimmering silver was the angular wolf, his mark. Piper will be brought up in 1 hour, he said. I reached out and took the key. It was heavy, cool to the touch. The sharp edges of the wolf pressed into my palm. I had accepted. I had no choice. He walked to the elevator. He had boxed me in with logic, safety, and my love for my daughter. He turned, his hand on the panel. Miss Quinlan, Mara. The use of my first name was a sudden, calculated intimacy. I pay my debts. You stepped in front of a bullet for me. I am in your debt. I don't want your debt, I said, my voice trembling with exhaustion and fury. I want my life back. You will have it, he promised. As soon as Dorian Vex is handled. The elevator doors opened with a soft hydraulic sound. Until then, Luca Valerian said, his steel gray eyes finding mine and holding them, I will not let anyone not Vex, not the BUI, not a soul in this city touch your daughter. He stepped back into the elevator. The doors slid shut, sealing me inside my new, beautiful, terrifying home. The first 3 days were a disorienting blur of managed pain, luxurious isolation, and Piper's boundless enthusiasm. On the second morning, A man with a kind, wrinkled face and a tweed jacket arrived at our door. Professor Eamon Pike, he introduced himself, bowing slightly to Piper. I am here on behalf of the Harbor Line Scholarium. I believe we have an appointment to discuss the relative density of the Andromeda Galaxy. Piper's eyes went wide. The Harbor Line Scholarium, Yana had explained, was the consortium's internal education and enrichment program. It was like everything else here, a fiction, a well-funded, beautifully executed lie to make our imprisonment feel like a privilege. But Piper, my bright, serious child, was in heaven. She had never had a private tutor. She had never had a school that provided a high-powered digital microscope just for her. Within an hour, their laughter was echoing from the living room, which Eamon had converted into a makeshift lab. "Mommy, look!" she yelled, running to me with a tablet. "This is the cytoskeleton of an onion. Professor Pike says it's like the building's scaffolding. But for life..." Her joy was a bright, hot coal in my chest. It was everything I wanted for her, and it was being provided by the man who had put us in danger. I smiled, told her it was amazing, and then retreated to the bedroom. My own education was less academic. A physical therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Anya, came twice a day. The muscles must not heal tightly, she instructed, her strong thumbs digging into the bruised tissue around my ribs. I would lie on the mat, staring at the gray bay, and let her work. Every movement was a fresh, hot tear. The skin pulled, the wound, which I'd only seen once, a raw, purple-lipped line of staples, felt like it was splitting open again. With every painful stretch, I would see that angular wolf tattoo in my mind, the mark on Luca Valerian's wrist. It was becoming a symbol of my dependency. I was here, healing in his fortress, eating his food, letting his professor teach my daughter, all because of his wolf. I was his responsibility, his debt. I hated the feeling. It felt too much like ownership. On the fourth day, Yana Volkov appeared. "Miss Quinlan, Piper. Mr. Valerian believes you should understand your environment. For your comfort, I will give you a tour of the non-restricted levels." Piper, thrilled at any excursion, bounced on her toes. I went along because staying in the apartment felt like shrinking. The elevator opened into a different world. This was not a hideout. It was a self-contained kingdom. "This is our primary hydroponics bay," Yana said, sweeping her hand toward a massive, humid glass house that smelled of wet earth and basil. Rows upon rows of lush green plants grew under vibrant purple lights. "We supply all our own produce for the station and our maritime crews. It is more secure, and frankly, the quality is better." We moved on. We saw a 3D printing lab where 2 technicians were fabricating what looked like a custom gear for a boat engine. "We make our own replacement parts," Yana explained. "It cuts down on supply chain vulnerabilities." Finally, she took us to the industrial kitchen. It was vast, all stainless steel, and bustling with activity. It smelled incredible garlic and baking bread and something savory from the sea. "This is the heart of the station," Yana said. A chef nodded to her as he stirred a massive pot. "He's making the seaweed and barley soup for the night crews on the freighters. We provide 2 hot meals per day for all our maritime employees." It was a staggering operation, efficient, clean, and entirely self-sufficient. This was not just a medical wing. It was a corporate nation-state hidden inside an old shipyard. "He built all this?" I asked, my voice low. "Mr. Valerian does not build," Yana corrected, her blue eyes meeting mine. "He plans. He provides the framework. The rest is just execution." Luca himself remained a ghost. He did not visit. He did not call. But his presence was constant. One evening, a delivery arrived, a beautifully illustrated, oversized book on astronomy for Piper. There was no note. But Eamon mentioned the next day that it was the exact text they needed for their module on nebulas. Another day, a small, black card appeared on the counter. It was not a credit card, but it had a chip. A simple note from Yana was attached. "Mr. Valerian has activated a line of credit for you at the Dock Fable Night Market. You can order delivery. They have the best foe in Gray Harbor." He was not imposing. He was not demanding. He was simply, opening doors, providing options. It was a subtle, insidious form of control. He was making the cage comfortable, removing every reason I might have to want to leave, even though I could not leave. That night, I could not sleep. The painkillers were wearing off, and the dull throb in my side had returned. I walked out into the private terrace. The wind was high, carrying the sharp tang of salt. My apartment was perched high on the building, giving me a clear view of the entire shipyard complex below. The container yard was lit by tall, stark floodlights. 2 figures were there, Cade and Luca. They were training. There was a series of steel targets set up. Cade was demonstrating a rapid, aggressive stance, firing in quick, controlled bursts. It was loud, professional. Then Luca took his turn. He did not move like Cade. He was not athletic. He was economical. There was no wasted motion. He did not raise the pistol high. He raised it, fired, and the target fell. He moved, turned, fired again. It was not the stylized action of a movie. It was the disciplined, brutal, and horrifyingly proficient movement of a man who had done this before. He moved less like a fighter and more like a surgeon, a man who had been to hell and learned the most efficient way to send someone else there. I backed away from the glass, my hand over my mouth. This was the man whose debt I was in. This was the man Piper was calling Uncle. The next day, the outside world breached the walls. Yana brought me a tablet, her face grim. "You need to see this." It was the online edition of the Gray Harbor Tribune. The headline read, "Bai investigates Valerian link in Pier 3 shooting." They mentioned an unnamed female victim, citing anonymous BUI sources who claimed I was known to be an associate of the Valerian organization. But the worst part, the part that made my blood freeze, was the picture. It was grainy, dark, taken from a bad security angle at the station. It was a blurry shot of me, my hair wild, my face turned away. In the split second before I shoved Piper, it was unmistakably me. My name was not there, but my face was... My anonymity was gone. The elevator chimed. Luca was here. It was the first time he had come to the apartment since I had moved in. He was holding a copy of the same tablet. "My lawyers are drafting a statement," he said, his voice flat. "We can file for libel, claim harassment, and have this scrubbed by morning." "No," I said, surprising myself with the force of my own voice. He paused, one eyebrow raised slightly. "No. No, you do that. And it looks like you're silencing them. It makes me look guiltier. It makes me look like your property." "You are a target," War, he countered, his voice reasonable. "This article paints a bullseye on your back." "I don't care." I was shaking, a mixture of fear and a sudden, sharp surge of defiance. "I'm not your associate. I'm not your victim. I am a woman who is taking her daughter to the library. I won't let them, or you, twist this. I will not hide." He studied me, that intense, unreadable gaze pinning me in place. I expected him to argue, to override me. Instead, he nodded, slowly. "All right, we do it your way." My way. "You can stand on your own," and he said, repeating my own sentiment back to me. "Fine, but I will be standing right behind you." He left as quietly as he had arrived. The encounter left me breathless. He had given me back a piece of my own power, and it terrified me more than his control had. That evening, I was tidying Piper's room. Her new desk was cluttered with star charts and drawings of planets, tucked under her pillow. I found a small notebook. I knew I should not, but I opened it. Piper had invented her own alphabet, made of constellations. She was writing a journal. My fingers traced the star patterns. I managed to decode one of the entries from that day. Professor Pike showed me Saturn's rings. They are mostly ice. Uncle Luca sent me a book about nebulas. They are star nurseries. He told me a shooting star is just a wish on the run, trying to find a place to land. Uncle Luca. My heart did not just sink. It felt like it fractured. He was getting to her. Or perhaps he was just being kind, and my jaded, terrified mind could not tell the difference. He was giving her a world I never could, a world with tutors, and science and metaphors about shooting stars. I was putting the book back when Yana buzzed the intercom. "Mara, we have a delivery at the main gate. It is addressed to you." My blood went cold. "I haven't ordered anything." "I know," she said. "Cade is bringing it up." A moment later, Cade entered, carrying a simple brown cardboard box. He placed it on the kitchen island and stepped back, his hand near his jacket. "It cleared security," he said, his voice clipped. "No electronics, no biologicals, but the tag is concerning." He pushed it toward me. The recipient line was simple: "The mom at Pier 3. I tore the tape off with shaking fingers. Inside, nestled on black tissue paper, was a wooden model of an antique ship. It was beautifully crafted, intricate and old. Under it was a single white card, the kind used for business. The note was typed, "Give me back my man, and I will give you back your peace." It was signed with a single, elegant and chilling letter. Vex. I looked up at Cade. His face was granite. "My man," I whispered. "What does that mean? I don't have anyone?" "It doesn't matter what it means," Cade said, his voice low and urgent as he spoke into his wrist communicator. "Yana, initiate protocol, Sierra. Change the gate ciphers. Full lockdown. No one in or out without my affirmative." He looked at me, his eyes hard. "It means he knows where you are, and he knows how to send a message." The beautiful apartment, with its floor-to-ceiling windows, suddenly felt like a glass trap. The storm was no longer coming. It was here. It was circling the walls. The box sat on the steel island like a bomb. Cade's order for a full lockdown, new ciphers on the gate, was immediate. The easy, comfortable illusion of the apartment evaporated. The glass walls, once a luxury, now felt like the weakest part of the fortress. "How?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "How did he know to send it here? How did he know I was the mom at Pier 3? Luca arrived within 10 minutes. He did not look at the ship model. He looked at me. "He did not breach our perimeter," Luca said, his voice a low, controlled hum. "He used an asset already in place. He did not mean the traitor. Not yet. He meant something colder." He was followed by a young woman with neon pink hair cut in a sharp asymmetrical bob. She wore tactical cargo pants and a t-shirt for some band I'd never heard of. She looked about 20 and carried a laptop covered in stickers. "This is Juniper Hale," Luca said. "She runs our data integrity." "Runs it, built it, and own it," the young woman muttered, not looking up. She sat at the island, plugged a device into the wall, and her fingers began to fly across the keyboard. The speed was dizzying. "Okay, so Vex didn't hack us. Our network is airtight. He hacked you. Or rather, he was already in your pocket." "What? I don't have anything to hack." Juniper finally looked at me, her eyes sharp and impatient. "You have a public library card. Right, your daughter checks out e-books on a city-issued tablet." "Yes," I said, a cold dread creeping up my spine. We go every Thursday. How do you know that?" "Because Vex planted a data scrape bot in the Gray Harbor Public Library's e-book server 6 months ago," Juniper said. "He's been passively logging user data, boring stuff, locations, checkout times, keyword searches. Oh, he didn't know who you were. Not until Cade's team here." She nodded at the big man. "Used your real name to sign you into the station's guest manifest, Vex's bot, which is always listening. Got a ping. Mara Quinlan. It cross-referenced your name with the library logs. It saw your e-book activity. It saw the last time you checked one out. Pier 3, Thursday night." She turned the laptop around. It was a simple log. My name, Piper's name, a list of borrowed books, and a location ping. Pier 3 station, timestamp 2 minutes before the shooting. "He found us," I whispered, "through library books." "He found Piper," Juniper corrected. "He used your daughter's account to find you." The next day, Professor Eamon Pike arrived looking troubled. He pulled me aside while Piper was drawing. "Miss Quinlan," he said in his gentle academic voice, "in light of Juniper's discovery, I must strongly advise that we suspend Piper's network access. Completely. No tablet, no e-books." "You want to cut her off," I flared, my voice rising. It's the only normal thing she has. It's her school. It is a vulnerability, Mara, he said, his kindness making it worse. A back door that Vex has already used. I was about to argue, to yell, but a small voice piped up from the living room. It's okay, Mom. Piper was standing there, holding one of her hand-drawn star charts. We don't need the tablet. Professor Pike can teach me from the paper maps. See, they don't need Wi-Fi. My anger dissolved, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. My daughter, my 9-year-old, was learning to adapt to a life of threats. She was learning to live inside a siege. I wanted to know why. That evening, I demanded answers. Luca did not prevaricate. He took me down to his real office, a Spartan, concrete-walled room below the waterline that felt more like a command bunker. He laid a single file on his desk. This is the why. The cover read the Syndic Courts. It is not a court of law, he said. It is a cartel, a board of directors for the city's shadows, old money, new tech, dirty politicians. They control everything you do not see. He opened it. They are forcing a vote on something called the Sea Treaty. It is a power-sharing agreement. They want to consolidate every port, every shipping lane, every dark logistic, as I called it, under one unified command, their command. And Vex? Vex is their hammer, Lucas said, his voice hard. He is crude, violent, but effective. His job is to attack my operations, make me look weak, force me to the table. He wants me to sign the treaty, to fold my network into theirs, to kneel. And you will not sign, I stated. I do not kneel, he said, closing the file. That box, I said, my mind racing back to the model ship. It was delivered. It wasn't just a hack. Someone let it in. Someone on your staff. Luca's eyes narrowed. He was already there. He picked up his desk phone. Yana, the manifest for the Vex delivery. I want it now. Yana appeared on the monitor. She looked pale. Boss, I've already reviewed it. It wasn't just delivered. It was flagged for internal priority. She put the digital manifest on the screen. There was a timestamp, a gate code, and a small, elegant seal I did not recognize. Yana's voice was tight. That is the seal for the Silver Needle tea shipment. It's a specialty blend we import for the senior staff. Only 5 people in this entire station have the authorization code for that priority channel. She took a breath. Me, Cade, you, of course, and the 2 kitchen supervisors. The silence in the bunker was deafening. The leak was real. It was high level. One of his most trusted people was feeding information to Vex. I left him to his paranoia and went to the observation deck, the one place that felt open. The wind whipped my hair. I could see the BUI cars, still a distant, menacing presence at the main checkpoint. Luca joined me minutes later. He stood several feet away, staring not at me, but at the BUI. Why? I asked, the wind tearing at the word. Why this? Why the private army? The fortress, you mentioned the BUI raid. Why is everything so broken that this, I gestured to the compound, is the only solution? He was silent for a long time. The only sound was the clanging of a buoy in the harbor. I was born in New Essex, he said finally, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. My father was a longshoreman. He was not in this life. He was a civilian, a good man. He worked the docks. He read history books. He turned to face me. The setting sun caught his eyes, turning them from steel to mercury. I was 10 years old. The BUI was running a purity sweep on the docks. Corrupt cops, bad intel. They were looking for a smuggler who lived 3 doors down. They hit the wrong door. His voice did not tremble, but it went deeper. My father was in the kitchen, reading. They burst in. 4 men in armor. He was startled. He stood up, and his reading glasses fell. He reached for them. He paused. They thought he was reaching for a weapon. I watched them shoot him. Twice. On our kitchen floor. Over a pair of reading glasses. He looked back out at the water. I learned that day, Mara, the law is just a story told by the winners. It's a shield for them, and a weapon to use against everyone else. I learned that if you are not at the table, you are on the menu. So I decided to build my own table. I learned to write my own law. The story was brutal, and it explained everything, but it did not excuse it. And look what your law does, I said, my voice sharp, cutting through his tragic history. I was tired of being a pawn in men's wars. It is the same as theirs. Your private fight with Vex, your syndic courts. It is just a different set of armor, a different set of bullets, and I am the one who got shot. Your private law gets innocent people caught in the crossfire, just like theirs did. I had expected him to argue, to defend his life's work, to justify himself. He did not. He met my gaze, and the depth in his eyes was absolute. He absorbed the accusation. He accepted it. Yes, he said, his voice barely a whisper. It does. There was no defense, no excuse, just the horrifying, shared acknowledgement of the fact it was a more profound confession than any apology. I had no answer for that. I went back to the apartment, my body aching, my phone, my personal phone that Cade's team had supposedly hardened and cleared was on the counter. It buzzed, a text from an unknown number. It was just a link, a video file. My fingers were shaking, but I opened it. My stomach hollowed out. It was footage from Pier 3, but this was not the grainy, overhead security cam. This was high definition, shaky, a body camera. I saw Luca, the man in the gray coat. I saw the masked men. I saw me shoving Piper. The angle. It was the shooter's angle. I watched, paralyzed. As the camera's crosshairs aimed directly at Luca's back, I saw myself launch into the frame. The camera jerked violently as I was hit. I heard the thwip. I heard my own gasp. And then the camera panned. It swiveled, past the chaos, and zoomed in. It zoomed in on the newspaper kiosk. It focused, sharp and clear, on my daughter's face, white with terror, as she peered out from behind the steel. The video cut. The message was not subtle. I saw her. I had a clear shot. I can get to her any time I want. Vex was done attacking Luca. He was attacking me. He was attacking my family. I ran. I jammed the button for the elevator, my hand slamming against the wolf insignia. I went straight to the medical wing. Cade was standing guard outside a conference room. He's in a meeting. I do not care. I shoved my phone into his hand. Watch it. Cade, the unbreakable man, watched the 30-second clip, the color drained from his face. His hand tightened on the phone until his knuckles were white. He did not say a word. He simply turned, opened the conference room door, and nodded me inside. Luca was at a table with 2 doctors. He saw my face and stood immediately. What is it? I threw the phone on the table. He watched the video. The cold calm in his eyes did not just fracture, it was vaporized, replaced by a still, white-hot rage that was more terrifying than any shouting. Cade, he said, his voice lethally soft. All business. Relocation, now. Get the jet fueled. Zurich. No. I slammed my hand on the table. The doctors flinched. I'm not running. This is not a negotiation. Mara, he is targeting your child. And what happens in Zurich, we hide in another fortress. I am not disappearing. I have a life here. I have a job. It sounded pathetic, even to me. My part-time waitress job, but it was mine. It is the one piece of my old life that is not this. I am not leaving. That is the most insane, stubborn, Cade began, but Luca held up a hand. He was calculating. I could see the wheels turning. You will not leave the city, he stated. You will not leave your life. Fine. He stared at me, a long, intense beat. Then we bring the job here. Your manager at the diner, Sal, he owes me a favor, a substantial one. I will have him change your shifts. You will be reassigned. Remote data entry for their corporate catering division. Same hours. I will have him double your pay. You can do it from the apartment. It was a perfect, elegant, suffocating solution. He had answered my objection and tightened the cage. I was trapped by his logic, by his power, by my own stubbornness. I will agree, temporarily, but I will not be your prisoner. I will not be your debt." "What do you want?" he asked. "Rules," I said, my voice finding a strength I did not know I had. "Boundaries. I am not your employee. I am not your associate. I am here for my daughter's protection. That is all. You will not make decisions for me. You will make them with me. Piper's education, her access, our food, our movements. I have a say. Full stop." I was defying a man who had his own army, a man who had just watched a video of his own attempted murder. He did not blink. He looked at me, and for the first time, I think he truly saw me, not as a victim, not as a debt. "Yana," he said, tapping his earpiece, "bring me a tablet and open a new memorandum." She arrived in less than a minute. Luca took the tablet, his fingers flying. He did not dictate. He typed. He called it a Memorandum of Joint Security Protocol. He listed my demands, one by one, in clear, concise, legal language. 1. All decisions regarding the welfare, education, and movements of the minor. Piper Quinlan require explicit maternal consent from Mara Quinlan. 2. All non-emergency relocations are voluntary. 3. All intelligence directly pertaining to the safety of Mara and Piper Quinlan will be shared immediately and transparently. He signed it at the bottom, Luca Valerian. He turned the tablet to me. "Sign." My finger trembled as I signed my name below his, Mara Quinlan. "It is done," and he said, "we are partners in this, until it is over." He stood up and held out his hand across the table. It was not a gesture of comfort. It was not an act of seduction. It was a contract. I looked at his hand, at the long, capable fingers, at the stark wolf on his wrist. I placed my hand in his. His grip was not warm. It was cool, firm, and rock steady. It was a handshake of pure, mutual, respectful necessity. And it was the first honest promise I'd been given since the night I fell. The signing of the Memorandum of Joint Security Protocol did not make us friends. It made us something far more complicated. It made us co-conspirators. The days that followed were thick with a new kind of tension. The open hostility was gone, replaced by a wary, watchful truce. I did my remote work. Piper learned about constellations from paper charts. Cade and his team moved like silent, heavily armed ghosts on the periphery. And the traitor, the fifth person with the Silver Needle T authorization, was still a phantom in the machine. Luca was hunting, I knew, but he did not share the details of the hunt. Our interactions were brief, formal. We discussed Piper's schedule. We reviewed the grocery deliveries. We were partners, adhering to the clauses of our strange, bloodless treaty. But the video Vex had sent the shooter's eye view of my daughter's terrified face had changed me. And the moment Luca had accepted my accusation, the moment he had said, "Yes, it does," had changed him. The debt was still there, but it was no longer just his debt to me. It was our shared, impossible situation. On the third night after the signing, Piper was asleep. I had read to her from the Star book, her small, warm body finally relaxing into the mattress. I tucked the blanket under her chin and kissed her forehead. She smelled like soap and the faint, sweet scent of the apple juice Yana had sourced. I retreated to the living room, to the laptop that represented my last tether to a normal life. The data entry was mind-numbing, but it was my work. I sat for an hour, the click of the keys the only sound in the vast, silent apartment, punctuated by the distant, lonely cry of a foghorn. At 9:30, the intercom buzzed, not the building line, the private one, the one that only connected to him. I pressed the screen. Yes. "She is asleep." His voice was low, not the flat, boardroom tone he used for security, but something quieter. "Yes, she's asleep. Come to the roof. The elevator is authorized for the dome." There was a pause. "I need to show you something." It was not an order. It was not even a request. It was an invitation. And the weight of it settled on me. I was not his prisoner. I had the Black Wolf card. I could say no. I slid the card into the slot. "I'm coming." The elevator, the same one that had delivered me to this cage, hummed upwards past my floor, past the executive levels, until it stopped. The doors opened onto a world I had not known existed. It was a greenhouse, a massive dome of glass and black steel, built on the absolute apex of the old shipyard. But this was not for hydroponic vegetables. This was a forest, mature. Potted trees reached for the glass, their leaves forming a canopy. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth, salt, and the faint, sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine. And through the glass, all of Gray Harbor was spread out below us, a glittering, chaotic carpet of neon and sodium lights smeared like wet ink against the black, churning water of the bay. Luca stood in the center, not looking at me, but out at the city. He was not in his button-down shirt, the uniform of the boss. He wore a simple, dark gray sweater and dark pants. He looked less like a commander and more like a man. "You said you wanted your life back," he said, his voice quiet. "This is what you are up against. This is what Vex wants, what the Syndic courts want." I walked to stand beside him, though I left several feet of air between us. "It's just a city." "No," he pointed. "That's the Port Authority. They control who docks. That's the BUI headquarters. They control who gets raided. That light, the blue one. That's the mainframe for the city's financial data. It's not a city. Mara, it's a map of power. Every light is an asset to be controlled or a liability to be erased." The bitterness rose in me, sharp and familiar. And which one am I? He turned then, and his steel-gray eyes met mine. The faint light from the harbor below cast strange shadows on his face. "You are neither. You are the one I never put on the map." We were silent for a long time. The only sound was the wind whistling around the dome and a distant train horn, a lonely, mournful sound. "This truce," I said finally, needing to name the air between us. "This memorandum, it is working. Piper feels safer." "It is not a truce," he said. "It is a logical adjustment. You are difficult, in a way my competitors are not." A spark of my old anger flared. Difficult because I refuse to be a silent victim, because I care about my child. "Difficult," he said, and the corner of his mouth twitched, "because you are impossibly stubborn. By any rational measure, you should have taken the jet to Zurich. You should have hidden. You should have let my lawyers handle the media. You did none of those things." He looked back at the city lights. "The universe seems to have a strange affinity for stubborn people. It complicates the mathematics of any given situation. Against my will." A sound escaped me. It was small and rusty, but it was unmistakably a laugh. "The universe likes stubborn people. That's your grand philosophy. I thought it would be something more ruthless." His gaze snapped back to me. The ghost of a smile had been a prelude. This time, it was real. It reached his eyes, and the effect was devastating. It cracked the cold, steel facade, and for a second, I saw the man he might have been. Younger, lighter. "It is the most ruthless philosophy I have," he said, his voice a low rumble. "It is the only one that has never been proven wrong." The moment hung in the air, fragile and strange. The laugh had broken something, and the silence that rushed in to fill the space was different. It was heavy, aware. As if on cue, a gust of wind slammed against the dome, finding a vent in the high ceiling. A blast of cold, wet air from the bay swirled into the greenhouse. It cut through my thin shirt, and I shivered, my hand instinctively going to my side where the wound still ached. "You are cold." Before I could answer, he was moving. He had a dark wool overcoat, the one he had worn to his office, resting on a nearby iron bench. He picked it up. "I'm fine," I said, a reflexive lie. "You are not." He did not toss it to me. He stepped into my space. He was close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. He draped the heavy coat over my shoulders. His hands settled the weight of the wool, but they did not leave. His fingers brushed the side of my neck, his thumb resting for just a second on the hollow of my collarbone. It was not a caress. It was a hesitation, a pause that lasted 1 beat, 2, 3, far longer than was polite. My breath caught in my throat. I could feel the specific, isolated warmth of his hand, a stark contrast to the cold air. I could smell him, not cologne. He smelled of sea salt, the clean scent of the wind, and something like dry pine. He did not move back. He did not pull away. He was waiting. This was the pivot. This was the moment that was not in the memorandum. My ex-husband, the man I had fled, had been a creature of impulse. He took, he grabbed, he never waited. Luca was waiting. He was giving me the choice. I could have stepped back, thanked him for the coat, and the fragile, dangerous bubble would have burst. The truce would have been restored. I did not. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic bird in a cage. I was tired of being afraid. I was tired of reacting. For 1 second, I wanted to act. I took one small, deliberate step. It was not even a step. It was a shift of my weight, closing the last few inches between us. His eyes searched mine, and the question in them was silent and absolute. "Are you sure?" I did not trust my voice. I gave him the smallest, almost imperceptible nod. He moved slowly, agonizingly slowly, giving me every chance to flee. He lowered his head. His first touch was a question. His lips brushed mine, soft, dry, and impossibly tentative. He was tasting the air between us. I did not pull back. I let out the breath I had been holding, my body trembling slightly. That was the only answer he needed. The kiss changed. He did not crush my mouth. He consumed it. It deepened, his mouth moving over mine with a deliberate, searching pressure. He tasted of the cold night air, and faintly, of the black coffee he always drank. It was not rough. It was thorough. My hands, of their own volition, came up. I did not push him away. I framed his face. My palms flattened against the sharp line of his jaw, the rough, abrasive scrape of stubble, a sudden, visceral shock. He made a low sound, deep in his chest. One of his hands moved from my shoulder, sliding down my back. It found the small of my spine, opposite my wound, supporting me, pulling me closer until I was pressed against the hard lines of his body. His other hand tangled in my hair, tilting my head back. My heart was no longer hammering. It was exploding, trying to match the rhythm of his. I could feel his heartbeat, fast and hard, through the gray sweater. Our breathing was a shared, ragged sound in the quiet dome. This was not a gentle, romantic kiss. It was a drowning. It was every day of fear, every night of isolation, the sheer, crushing weight of the debt and the terrifying, sharp spark of life. It was anger and gratitude and a profound, terrifying want. A sound, sharp and clear, cut through the haze. Clang, clang, clang! The shift bell from the docks, the signal for the tide change. We broke apart, but not far. We were both breathing as if we had run a mile. His eyes were dark. The steel gray burned to charcoal. He rested his forehead against mine. I closed my eyes, my hands still gripping his jaw. His hand still a hot, heavy weight on my back, his thumb tracing a slow, possessive circle. We just breathed. It was not a promise. It was not a vow. It was an admission. "Mara," he whispered. His voice was rough, unrecognizable. "I will not touch what you do not want." I opened my eyes. He was all I could see. I was wrapped in his coat. I was standing in his fortress. I was in more danger than I had ever been. "You're doing fine," I whispered back. A small, strained smile touched his lips. He straightened, pulling back an inch. His hand left my back and moved to my arm, gripping it as if to steady himself. Or me. He took a half step away. We were separate again, but the air between us was electric. The string that had connected us, the one of debt and protection, had not broken. It was now pulled agonizingly tight. It was warm, and it was impossibly, lethally dangerous. I pulled his coat tighter around me, the scent of pine and salt a sudden, confusing comfort. He turned away, his composure returning, the mask of the boss sliding back into place. He looked back out at the city, but his shoulders were rigid. My gaze drifted from his profile, scanning the dark corners of the glass house. And I saw it. Tucked into the black steel rafters, almost invisible in the shadows, was a small, black dome, a security camera. As I stared, a tiny pinprick of red light blinked, once, then again. My stomach turned to ice. Someone had watched. Someone inside this fortress, someone with access to Luca's private dome, had just seen everything. The fragile, dangerous connection we had just forged was already a weapon in someone else's hands. The kiss in the dome, and the red blinking eye of that camera, shattered the fragile peace. We had not spoken of it. We pulled back into our prescribed roles, partners in the memorandum, but the air between us was a live wire. There was no time to discuss it. The following morning, Vex made his next move. He did not use bullets. He used ink. "It is live," Yana said, her voice clipped, holding a tablet out to me. The Harborline Tribune was at it again. The BUI had found evidence linking me directly to Valerian's payroll. They claimed I was a long-term paid informant. The proof was a photograph. It was me, taken a week ago during my tour of the station. I was in the cargo bay, handing a box of medical supplies to one of the dock workers who was part of Luca's internal community. The article had twisted it. The headline read, "Valerian's mom pictured handling illicit cash delivery." They had turned an active aid into a criminal transaction. "They are building a case," Luca said, his voice quiet, his rage a coiled, frozen thing. He had appeared from his office. "They are discrediting you as a witness. If they can paint you as a criminal, anything you say about Pier 3, about Vex, is meaningless. It is smart." "I am not a criminal," I said, my voice shaking. "I was handing out first aid kits." "The dock workers' aid shipment for the month is scheduled for tonight," Cade said, looking at Luca. "At the Dock Fable night market. Standard procedure. Vex will know this. He will expect us to cancel. He will expect you to hide." "It's an ambush," Luca stated. "He wants to stop the delivery," I said, my mind racing. "He wants to prove I am not what I say. He wants to show the community I am just like you, hiding in a fortress." "We will cancel," Luca said. "We will move the delivery." "No." The word was out of my mouth before I could think. They both stared at me. "No, you cancel. He wins. He proves his point. He proves I am a fraud, hiding. I will not hide, not for him, not for the BUI. "Mara, this is not a debate," Luca said, his voice hardening. "He will have men there. He's expecting me. He will settle for you. Then I will show them the truth." I looked at Juniper, who had been silently monitoring the network traffic. "You, the hacker, can you broadcast?" Juniper's pink-haired head snapped up. "I can broadcast from a toaster oven if I have to. What are you thinking?" "I am going," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I am going to that market. I am going to hand out every box of aid, and I am going to live stream the entire, uncut, unedited event. I will tell them my name. I will show them my face. I will show them what adjusted, and I will dare the BUI to arrest me for handing out diapers and aspirin. We are not fighting with guns. We are fighting with stories. It is time I told mine." Luca studied me, his face an unreadable mask of granite. He saw the new, hard line of my jaw. He saw that I was, in my own way, as stubborn as he was. "Cade," he said, not taking his eyes off me. "The vehicle, not the sedan. The refrigerated truck. Thin armor, we do not go in heavy. We go in smart." He looked at Juniper. "The drone. I want the rain screen package ready. Full spectrum light noise. When I give the signal, I want every camera Vex has in that market to see nothing but white light." He finally looked at me. "You will not go alone. You will wear a vest. Piper stays with Yana." "No," I said again, softer this time. "Piper comes." "Absolutely not." "She stays in the truck, in the armored cab, with Cade. But she comes. This is not just about me, Luca, this is about us. Vex threatened my family. I am showing him my family is not afraid. I am showing my daughter that we do not run. We finish the delivery together. It was the most insane, reckless thing I had ever said, but I meant it. Luca's expression was caught somewhere between fury and a strange, grudging respect. "You are," he said, "going to be the death of me." The Dock Fable Market was a sprawling, chaotic maze of food stalls, cheap electronics, and shipping containers converted into storefronts. It was loud, smelled of fried fish and diesel, and was lit by 1,000 hanging paper lanterns. Cade drove the 18-wheel refrigerated truck, its logo reading Valerian Maritime Logistics, right into the central plaza. This was our territory, or it had been tonight. The air was tense. The usual crowds were thinner. People watched us from the shadows. "All right, Mara," Juniper's voice crackled in my earpiece. "I am live. Your phone is the primary camera. We are streaming to a secure server and bouncing it to every public forum in Gray Harbor. You have an audience." I took a deep breath. Cade opened the back of the truck. It was filled with boxes, formula, diapers, medical supplies, warm clothing. I stepped out. I held my phone up, my hand shaking so hard I had to grip it with two. "My name is Mara Quinlan. You have seen my face in the news. The Harbor Line Tribune and the BUI say I am a criminal. They say I take money from the Valerian Group." I panned the camera to the open truck. "This is what I am handling. This is the monthly community aid shipment. They call it a cash delivery. I call it baby formula. Now, I am going to hand it out, and I am going to film every second." For a moment, silence. Then slowly, the dock workers and their families, the people I had met on my tour, began to emerge. A mother with a newborn accepted the first box of diapers. A grandmother took a bag of rice. It was working. The truth was simple, and it was hard to argue with. "Cade," I whispered, "where is Piper?" "Safe," his voice rumbled from the cab. "She's in the steel-lined passenger box, watching a movie. She's fine." We were halfway through the truck when I saw them. They came from the alleys, not in cars, but on motorcycles. 6 of them, maybe 8, black bikes, matte black helmets. They did not brandish weapons. They just appeared. They formed a loose, menacing circle around the plaza, cutting us off. The families scattered. "Juniper," I heard Cade hiss into his comms. "I see them," her voice replied, suddenly tight. "Mara, get back in the truck. Now, this is Vex's cleanup crew." "Not yet," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm not done." I kept the camera rolling, turning it on the bikers. The BUI said I was the criminal. Are these men here to stop me? Or are they here to stop the aid? One of the bikers revved his engine, a deep, angry snarl. "Now, Mara," a new voice said, not in my ear, but right behind me. "Luca." He was not in the truck. He was on foot, appearing from the shadow of a fish stall. He wore a black coat, and his face was cold with a controlled fury. "Get in the truck." "Where did you come from?" "I was never far," he said. He grabbed my arm, not gently, and shoved me toward the passenger side of the cab. "Cade, go Juniper. Light them up." As Cade threw the massive truck into gear, a high-pitched whine filled the air. A drone, somewhere above us, unleashed a blinding, pulsing strobe of white light. The market was plunged into a disorienting visual chaos, like a drum and bass rhythm made of light. I scrambled into the cab. Luca was right behind me, slamming the reinforced door shut. "Where is Piper?" he yelled, his eyes scanning the mirrors. "She is in the sleeper unit, secure," Cade grunted. The motorcycles were scattering, their engines screaming, blinded by the drone. "They are regrouping," Luca said, "heading for the container yard. They know our route." Cade drove, not fast, but with the unstoppable momentum of a freight train. We burst out of the market and into the labyrinth of the container port. The huge, refrigerated container we were hauling made the truck slow and unwieldy. The bikes were on us in seconds. They were fast, zipping between the stacks of containers. I heard a sharp thwack as something hard hit the bullet-resistant glass by my head. "They are not trying to kill us," Luca said, his voice strangely calm. "They are trying to stop us, to hurt us." We raced through the dark, metal canyon. Cade was a miracle at the wheel, drifting the massive rig around a corner, sending a stack of empty pallets flying. "Bridge ahead," Cade yelled. "The Gull's Point drawbridge. They are timing us. It is raising." I saw it. 200 yards ahead, the massive steel spans of the bridge were separating, lifting into the night air. Red warning lights flashed. "We are not going to make it," I whispered. "We are," Lucas said. He reached past Cade and slammed his hand onto a large, red, auxiliary throttle on the dash. "Now, Cade." Cade did not flinch. He aimed the truck at the rapidly shrinking gap. The engine screamed, a deafening roar that filled the cab. The motorcycles were falling back. Realizing what we were about to do, "Hold on," Luca yelled. I did not scream. I closed my eyes. We hit the ramp of the bridge at full speed. There was a moment of impossible, terrifying weightlessness, then a crash, a sound so loud it felt solid. The entire truck slammed down on the opposite span. The back wheels, the drive wheels, were still on the rising section. They spun uselessly against the air. "We are stuck," I yelled. "No," Cade said. The engine roared, and I felt the front wheels grab the pavement. The truck groaned, metal scraping metal. The back wheels caught the very edge of the steel lip. Sparks, a waterfall of brilliant orange fire, erupted from under the truck, illuminating the cab. The smell of burnt rubber and hot metal filled the air. With one final, shuddering lurch, the truck pulled itself free. We were across. I looked back. The bridge was fully raised, a massive V against the night sky. The motorcycles were trapped on the other side, small, frustrated silhouettes. I was shaking, violently. My phone was still clutched in my hand, still live. I turned it on myself. My face was pale, my hair wild. I turned it back to the window, showing the rising bridge. They tried to stop us. They failed. Then I did something Luca had not planned. I opened my laptop, pulled the images from the stream, and captured a crystal-clear shot of two of the motorcycle's license plates. I opened a new message. I addressed it to the public tip line of the Bureau of Urban Integrity. I attached the photos. I wrote one sentence. "Here are your criminals. If you still have any justice left, prove it." I hit send. We drove to an abandoned junkyard on the city's edge. The chase was over. Cade cut the engine. The sudden silence was heavy. "Piper," I gasped, fumbling for the door to the sleeper. "Is she, I tore the curtain back. She was there, in her little car seat, headphones still on, watching an animated movie on a tablet. She was completely oblivious, safe in her steel cocoon. She looked up at me and smiled, pulling one ear off. Was it loud? "Mommy, I think I heard a bump." I hugged her so hard she grunted, burying my face in her hair. Luca was watching me, his expression unreadable. He got out of the truck. I saw him walk to a dark corner of the junkyard. He took his own phone, tossed it onto a pile of scrap metal, and walked back. "What did you do?" I asked, getting out. "I paid my debt," he said. "Vex wanted a trap. I gave him one." He nodded at the phone. "That phone has a chip in it. It is broadcasting a signal, making it look like my primary secure line. Vex's hackers will find it within the hour. They will think they have compromised me. They will use that compromised line to move their money. And you will be watching." I finished, understanding. Juniper will be watching. She will trace their transfer, right back to their main hub at Rift Bay. "And the mole?" I asked, the red camera light flashing in my mind. "The person in your house." Luca's face darkened. "The delivery for Vex," he said, his voice cold. "The model ship. It was prioritized on the Silver Needle T manifest." "Yana," I whispered. She had been one of the 5. "No, not Yana. She just confessed. She has been covering for someone. Her deputy chef, a man she trusted like a son. He has a sister with a severe medical condition. Vex's people found her, paid for her treatments. They bought him." "What will you do to him?" "Nothing," Luca said. "Nothing. He is a small fish. Mara, a desperate man. Vex will think his man is still secure. He'll keep using him. And that man," Luca said, his eyes turning to ice, will now be feeding Vex exactly what I want him to hear. I will not punish him. I will use him to follow the line all the way back to the Syndic courts. I looked at this man, who could plan a counter-ambush in the middle of a high-speed chase, who could turn an act of betrayal into a weapon. I finally understood. This was not a war of guns. It was a war of reputation, of data, and of who told the most believable story. And I, with my live stream, had just fired my first real shot. My live stream had done exactly what I wanted. It had drawn blood. It had forced the Bureau of Urban Integrity out of the shadows. They did not contact Luca. They contacted me. A man named Arden Shaw, Cade said, his voice a low rumble from the intercom. Special prosecutor for the BUI. He wants a private meeting. He says it's about victim services. I looked at the sleek black intercom. Luca had given me this power. It's your call, he had said, per the memorandum. I will meet him, I said, my voice hard, but not alone. We use the medical conference room. You stay in the room. The meeting took place an hour later. Arden Shaw was the opposite of Vex. Vex was chaos. Shaw was all polished, expensive surfaces. He wore a $3,000 suit, had perfect teeth, and a smile that never, for 1 second, reached his eyes. Miss Quinlan, Mara, I want to personally apologize for the ordeal you and your daughter have endured. Save it, I said, cutting him off. I was not there for apologies. You are here with an offer. Shaw's smile tightened. Just a fraction. You're in an impossible situation. We know that. We know about Valerian's organization. We know about Dorian Vex. You are a civilian, caught in a war you did not start. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial, friendly hush. I'm here to offer you a way out, a real one. Cooperate with the Bureau of Urban Integrity. Give us a full statement on Valerian's operation, what you have seen. His assets, his plans. In exchange, we can offer full federal protection. You and your daughter. New names, a new city, a clean slate. We can give you your life back. It was the second time a powerful man had offered to save me. This time, it rang hollow. You want me to be your witness, I said, not asking, but stating. Against Luca, not against Vex. Vex is a symptom. Valerian is the disease, Shaw said smoothly, his eyes gleaming with a prosecutor's zeal. That's funny, I countered, leaning forward, because Vex is the one who shot me. Vex is the one who sent a team of armed men on motorcycles to stop me from delivering baby formula. I sent your office their license plates. Clear, high-definition photographs. That was 48 hours ago. I let the silence stretch, thick and heavy in the sterile room. Cade stood by the door, his arms crossed, a mountain of silent judgment. Why haven't you arrested them, Mr. Shaw? Arden Shaw steepled his fingers, the picture of bureaucratic contemplation. The polished mask slipped. He gave a thin, dismissive laugh, as if I were a child asking a naive question. Miss Quinlan, we are a large organization. We have protocols. We have priorities. So, arresting armed, masked men who attack a public aid delivery in the middle of the city is not a priority. We have, he said, his voice flat, limited resources. It was not an excuse. It was a confession. I saw the rot, clear as day. He was not inefficient. He was compromised. He could not arrest Vex. They were on the same side. I see, I said, standing up. The meeting was over. I think we are done here. My statement is the 1-hour live stream I already broadcast to the entire city. If you want to know what happened, I suggest you watch it. The fake empathy vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp threat. If you stay, Miss Quinlan, Shaw said, his voice turning hard, you will be indicted right alongside him. We will paint you as his accomplice. That cash delivery story will stick. Think about your daughter. Think about her growing up, visiting her mother in a federal prison. Get out, I said. Cade opened the door. Shaw adjusted his tie, his eyes like chips of ice. The offer stands, for now. He left. I did not wait. I went straight to the bunker. Luca was already there with Juniper, the wall-sized screen lit up with flowing data. "He's compromised," I said, the words tasting like ash. "I know," Luca replied, not looking up. "Arden Shaw's name appears on 3 internal BUI reports that buried evidence against Vex's operations. He is on their payroll. He's offering me witness protection to testify against you," I said, pacing. "He's threatening to indict me if I do not—" "He's trying to remove you from the board," Luca said, his voice a low, controlled hum. "Your live stream hurt them. It made the public ask questions. Now they need to silence you, either by flipping you or by jailing you." "So what is the plan?" I demanded. "We cannot hide here forever. He's coming for me. Vex is coming for me." "No," Luca said. He finally turned. His eyes were clear, focused. "We stop hiding. We end it." He pointed to the screen. "Juniper has been following the money from the phone I dropped, Vex's organization, Shaw's BU unit, and the Syndic courts. They all funnel their black money through the same encrypted account." Juniper grinned, her pink hair vibrant in the dim light. "And that account is the primary sponsor of a single event, the Sea Treaty Charity Gala. It is their big We Own the City party. It is in 3 nights. Luca looked at me. "The plan has 2 layers. Layer 1, we expose Vex and Arden Shaw, not just to the BUI, but to the public. We show the city that the man meant to protect them is in bed with the man trying to burn it down." "And layer 2, I asked, my heart beginning to pound. "Layer 2, he said, his voice dropping, "is that we take the evidence of the Syndic Court's Black Fund, all of it, and we do not give it to the police. We give it to the people of Gray Harbor. We burn the whole rotten system to the ground, publicly." "How?" "By using their gala as our stage. But it is high risk, and you," he said, his gaze pinning me, "are the center of this. You are the only one the public trusts. You are not me. You are not them. You are the narrator." The woman who was afraid of a corrupt prosecutor stared at the man asking her to declare war. "I will do it," I said, the words coming out stronger than I felt. "I want Shaw. I want Vex. I want them to pay." I took a breath, the one condition solidifying. "But I have one last demand per the memorandum." "Name it." "Piper. She cannot be here. She cannot be in this station. If I am the narrator, she is the leverage. I want her gone. I want her safe. Somewhere they can never, ever find her until it is done." Luca nodded as if he had been waiting for it. "I agree. We move her tonight. Not to another city. That is too predictable. We move her somewhere internal. It is called the Lighthouse Club. It is a community center I funded years ago, built inside a repurposed church on the old North Shore. It is heavily secured, run by Eamon Pike, and completely, utterly off the grid. No one outside of 5 people knows it exists. She will be safe there until you come for her." "She leaves tonight," I said. It felt final. While Cade and Juniper prepared the soft transfer, no logs, no manifests, Yana Volkov requested to see me, alone. She stood rigidly in my apartment, her face pale. The mask of the perfect coordinator cracked. "Miss Quinlan? I must confess my failure." "The deputy chef," I said quietly. She flinched. "Yes, I was the one who vouched for him. I treated him like a son. I saw his distress. I attributed it to his sister's illness. I did not see it as a vulnerability. I failed in my risk assessment. I exposed you. I exposed Piper." She was a soldier, admitting a catastrophic breach. She was waiting for me to yell, to demand she be fired. I looked at this proud, capable woman, drowning in her own code of honor. "Yana," I said, my voice tired, "screaming at you does not make Piper safer. Firing you does not make the building more secure. What it does is create another vulnerability. You are the best at what you do. What I need from you is not an apology. I need a new protocol. A new protocol. A soft protocol. Piper is moving tonight. I want a complete information blackout on her location. No manifests, no digital logs. I want her new schedule to exist in only 3 places: your head, my head, and Luca's, the kitchen staff, the security rotation, They do not need to know. We protect her by making her invisible. Can you do that? Yana's shoulders, which had been rigid with shame, relaxed almost imperceptibly. She had been given a new, clear mission. Yes, it will be done. Thank you, Mara. She left. An hour later, Luca arrived. The apartment was silent. "They are ready to move, Piper," he said. Good. He did not leave. He stood in the middle of the room, an awkward, static energy coming off him. "The gala, it will be dangerous. Vex will be there. Shaw, their security will be heavy." "I know. You have veto power," he said, his voice formal, as if reading from our contract. "At any second, if you feel the risk to you or the subsequent risk to Piper is too great, you can stop this. You say the word, and I will pull the plug on the entire operation. I swear it." The weight of it hit me. The risk, the gala, the men with guns, the fact that I was willingly walking into the fire, not away from it. "Why?" I snapped. The tension of the last week, the last hour, finally breaking. "Why give me the veto you have wanted this? To fight them. Now you are giving me the off switch." "Because it is your life, Mara. It is your choice." "My choice?" I laughed, a harsh, ugly sound that echoed in the silent, glass-walled room. "I have not had a choice since I stepped on that platform. I did not choose to be shot. I did not choose to be stalked. I did not choose to be held in this fortress, and I did not choose to send my daughter into hiding tonight." The words were pouring out of me, hot and uncontrolled. "I am tired of men telling me what my choices are," I yelled, my voice cracking. "I am tired of being backed into a corner and told to be grateful for the cage. Mara, that is not what this is. It is. It always is." The memory I had buried for 3 years, the one I never spoke of, clawed its way to the surface. Do you know what it took for me to get here? To get to Gray Harbor, I had to run. In the middle of the night, with Piper in her car seat, I had to leave my entire life behind because my ex-husband, because he liked to choose for me. He chose what I wore, who I saw, and when I was being difficult, he backed me into a corner for 6 years. I was crying now, hot, angry tears of humiliation and rage. I ran from him, and now I am right back where I started, trapped, running from another violent man, hiding with another powerful one. This is not a choice. Luca, this is just a different cage. I sank onto the sofa, my body shaking. The confession hung in the air, raw and bleeding. Luca was silent. He did not move. He did not try to comfort me. He just stood there, his face pale, his fists clenched at his sides. He looked, for the first time since I'd met him, truly lost. He started, his voice rough. "I did not know. Mara, I am sorry. I am sorry that I brought that back to you. I did not see." He had triggered the trauma. He knew it. The powerful man, trapping me, even for my own good. It was the same dynamic. He finally moved, sitting not beside me, but on the low coffee table in front of me. He did not reach for me. "This is not a cage," he said, his voice low, fierce. "It is a shield, and you are not a prisoner. You are my partner. The gala, it is not me forcing you. It is me asking you." He looked down at his hands. "But I was wrong. The risk is too high. The cost is too much. I will not ask it of you. I will find another way." "No," I whispered, wiping my face with the back of my hand. "No, you were right the first time. We end it, or we will always be running." "Are you sure?" "I am sure. I am not that woman anymore. I will not be that woman again. I will not run. I will stand. I will be the narrator." He looked at me, and the gratitude in his eyes was so profound it stole my breath. "Thank you." The silence returned, but the tension was different. It was the quiet after a storm. I was exposed. He was repentant. The trust, which had been a thin, brittle thing based on a contract, was suddenly something else. It was deeper. It was based on the truth. I do not know who moved first. It did not matter. I was off the sofa, and he was on his feet, And we met in the middle of the room. It was not a kiss. It was not desire. It was gravity. He just held me, his arms wrapped around me, one hand splayed across my back, the other cradling the back of my head, his fingers tangling in my hair. I pressed my face into his chest, my hands gripping the fabric of his shirt. It was a long, silent, breathless embrace. I could feel his heart beating, steady and slow, under my ear. He smelled like coffee in the cold night air. It was the smell of safety, not a cage, a shield. He held me as I had needed to be held for years, solid, unmoving, a wall against the world. We just stood there, two broken, stubborn people, breathing in the same rhythm. The trust was rebuilt, not with words, but with the simple, unspoken promise of "I am here." When we finally pulled apart, nothing and everything had changed. "I have to go," I whispered, my voice thick. "I have to pack Piper's bag." "I know." He did not try to stop me. I went to her room. I packed her favorite pajamas, her stuffed rabbit, and the paper star chart. I left the laptop. When I came out, I found a small, folded piece of paper on my pillow. I opened it. It was a crayon drawing. It was me, and it was Piper, and it was a tall, dark-haired man standing between us. We were on a boat, under a sky full of shooting stars. She had written her name at the bottom, in her little constellation alphabet. I folded the paper, my heart aching, and slipped it into the pocket of my jeans. For luck. Sending Piper to the Lighthouse Club was the hardest thing I have ever done. I kissed her goodnight, her sleepy murmur of "love you, mommy," a knife in my chest, and watched her walk away holding Professor Amon's hand. She was going into the dark, into a secret church, because of a war that was not hers. I touched the folded crayon drawing in my pocket. It was not just for luck, it was a promise. 3 nights later, I was transformed. The dress was silver, a column of liquid metal that Yana had sourced. It was heavy, cool against my skin, and felt less like a dress and more like armor. My hair was swept up, and in my ear, so small it was invisible, was a communications bead. "Audio check, Mara," Juniper's voice crackled, a ghost in my head. "Can you hear me?" "Loud and clear," I whispered, my hands trembling as I smoothed the silver fabric. "Good. Don't look so terrified. You look like you could commit murder and get away with it. Kate is inside, setting the stardust package. Luca is, well, he's making his entrance. Try not to faint." I walked out of the private elevator and into the main ballroom of the Meridian Hotel. It was everything my life was not. The room was a cathedral of Art Deco design, all black marble, gold leaf, and towering windows that looked out onto the river. A string orchestra was playing a waltz, the music a soft, decadent layer over the murmur of hundreds of voices. This was the Syndic Courts, the financial elite, the political power of Gray Harbor, all gathered to celebrate their control, and I was here to burn it down. I felt their eyes on me, the woman from the Tribune, the Valerian associate. I kept my head high, my eyes searching. Then he appeared. The crowd parted for him. Luca Valerian did not enter a room. He claimed it. He wore no tuxedo. He was in a simple, perfectly tailored black coat, his white shirt open at the collar. He looked less like a guest and more like the owner of the stage, an apex predator walking calmly among the herd. He was the distraction. He was the target. His eyes found mine across the ballroom. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. The heist was on. "All right, Mara." Juniper's voice was a sharp, digital contrast to the soft waltz. "The plan. Kate has rigged the donation safe. It is that black marble obelisk near the honor wall. He has a stardust mesh over the card slot, a non-visible laser network. When Vex makes his bribe, disguised as a donation, the mesh will scan and clone his encrypted data card, but I need you to confirm the deal." "How?" "I need Vex and Arden Shaw together. I need a visual of the transaction. You are my eyes." I scanned the room. Arden Shaw was by the champagne fountain, laughing, his teeth perfect, his $3,000 suit immaculate. He was the picture of public integrity. Vex was near the edge of the room, looking uncomfortable, a bulldog in a tuxedo. I moved, a silver ghost drifting through the crowd, my shaking hands clasped in front of me. I needed a drink. I needed a different life. I settled for grabbing a glass of water from a passing tray. The waltz swelled. Shaw moved, gliding through the crowd, and approached Vex. They leaned in, heads close. Shaw was smiling, talking. Vex was not. He just nodded. "I see them," I whispered, turning my back to them, pretending to admire the view. "I see them too," Juniper said. "Shaw just tapped his phone. He's authorizing the land grant for the port. Now, Vex has to pay. Watch the safe. Mara." Vex broke away from Shaw. He walked to the donation safe. He looked around, then pulled a slim, black card from his jacket. He slid it into the slot. "Got it." Juniper's voice was a suppressed shriek in my ear. "The mesh worked. I am cloning his drive. Oh, this is beautiful. This is not just Vex's data. This is the entire Syndic Court's black ledger. He was carrying it." A cold voice cut in. "Stay focused. Juniper." "Cade." "Right. Sorry. Okay, Mara. It is your turn. The honor wall, where they list the donors." I turned. The wall was a massive display of backlit names. Silk banners hung from the high ceiling, swaying gently. "I am here." "Good. In your evening bag, you have a small silver cylinder. It looks like a lipstick case. It is a remote projector activator. I need you to stand by the central panel. Wait for the music to swell and press the button." "And then?" "And then," Juniper said, her voice filled with glee, "you show them the truth." I walked. My heels clicked on the marble. The orchestra leader lifted his baton. The waltz reached its crescendo. I pulled the cylinder from my bag. My hand was not shaking anymore. I pressed the button. The waltz died in a screech of feedback. The grand chandeliers of the ballroom went black, plunging the room into darkness. A woman screamed. Then a new light appeared, a beam, sharp and white, shot from a hidden projector across the room. It hit the massive, vaulted ceiling. The justice flash. It was not a flash, it was a projection. A massive, data-mapped image of Arden Shaw's laptop screen. An email appeared, projected 20 feet high for the entire room to see. From Arden Shaw to Dorian Vex. Subject Peer 3. Containment failure. The woman is a problem. We will escalate the media narrative. She will be buried. The crowd gasped. The projection changed. A new slide, bank account numbers, offshore transfers, a list of BUI agents on a private payroll. The projection changed again. The Silver Needle Tea manifest, the deputy chef's name, the order for the model ship sent to my apartment. The room was in chaos. People were yelling, pushing. I saw BUI agents, the real ones, their faces pale, their hands on their weapons, looking at Shaw. They had no choice. They had to act. I searched the panic for Luca. I saw Vex first. He was not running. He was staring at me, his face a mask of purple rage. He was not a corporate villain. He was a street-level monster, and I had just destroyed his world. He moved his jacket. I saw it, tucked into his waistband, a small, flat pistol he had smuggled past the weak security. He was pulling it. He was raising it, his arm leveling, aiming right at me. I had no time to scream. I had no time to move. A black shadow slammed into my side. It was Luca. He hit me with the force of a linebacker, his arms wrapped around me, driving me backward. "Down," he roared. We did not just fall. We crashed. We flew sideways, smashing into the main bar. The sound was an explosion, a mountain of shattering glass, champagne flutes, whiskey tumblers, bottles of alcohol, all of it disintegrated. I felt the impact radiate through my body, followed by the icy, shocking deluge of champagne and splintered ice soaking my dress, my hair. I was on the floor, in a sea of broken glass and expensive liquor, with Luca's body a heavy, solid shield on top of me. He was moving, getting up, His eyes locked on Vex. His face was not the face of the man in the dome. It was the face from the container yard, cold, surgical, and utterly lethal, when he was going to kill him. "Luca!" I screamed, grabbing the lapel of his coat. "No, don't, not here. Not in front of me." His eyes snapped to mine. He was warring with himself. The killer versus the partner. That 1 second of hesitation was all Cade needed. Cade came from nowhere. He did not grab the gun. He grabbed Vex's arm. There was a sound, a short, wet, sickening snap. Vex howled, a high animal sound. The pistol clattered harmlessly onto the marble floor. Cade kicked it away, then drove his knee into Vex's stomach, folding him. "Where is Shaw?" I yelled, scrambling to my feet, my dress dripping. Luca was already scanning the exits. "Gone. Juniper." "He is running," her voice shrieked in my ear. "He went out a service exit. Cade, he left his laptop on the table. The idiot left his laptop." I saw Cade look up from the groaning Vex, a wolfish grin spreading on his face. He was already moving. "I am locking it down," Juniper said, her voice frantic with excitement. "And I am dumping it, the whole drive, unencrypted. I am sending the entire contents of Special Prosecutor Arden Shaw's laptop to every news server, public forum, and hacktivist group in Gray Harbor. Merry Christmas, you corrupt sons of bitches." The truth was out. The real BUI agents were securing Vex. Security was trying to calm the screaming guests. The room was a wreck. I stood up, pushing my wet hair out of my face. I was shaking from the adrenaline. I walked past the broken bar, past the panicked elite. The band had fled their stage, leaving their instruments. I picked up the microphone. The feedback howled, a sharp, piercing sound that cut through the chaos, silencing the room. Every eye turned to me, the woman in the ruined silver dress, standing in the wreckage. My voice was low and the microphone made it boom. "This is our city," I said, my voice clear. Not a tremor in it. Justice begins with the truth. The room was silent, save for the sound of Vex whispering curses. I dropped the microphone. I found Luca, and he was standing near the door, watching me, his eyes dark with an emotion I could not read. He was already on his phone. "We did it," I said, walking toward him, my knees weak. "We won." He looked up from the screen, his face pale, the victory gone. "What?" I said, my blood running cold. "What is it?" He showed me the phone. It was a single line of code, a priority alert from his deepest network. "We won the battle," Luca said, his voice a low, hard whisper. "The Syndic courts just issued a wipe-the-slate order on me." A wipe-the-slate order. "It is not a metaphor," he said, his eyes finding mine. "The reality of our next fight settling on us. It is an execution order. For tonight, the war just began. We did not return to the station in triumph. We fled. The ballroom, the broken glass, the arrival of the real BUI, we left it all behind, fading into the night as the wipe-the-slate order pulsed on Luca's phone. It was a death sentence. The bunker, which had been a place of planning, was now a flurry of frantic energy. Cade was already throwing hard-cased electronics onto the steel table. "Zurich," Cade said, his voice a low, urgent growl. "The jet is fueled. We can be in the air in 20 minutes. We transfer the assets from there." Luca did not move. He stood, still in his black coat from the gala, staring at the digital map of Gray Harbor on the wall. "No. No." Cade slammed a case shut. "Boss, this is not Vex. This is not Shaw. This is the Syndic courts. This is a purge. They have sanctioned you. You do not fight a purge. You run." "If I run, they win," Luca said, his voice dangerously quiet. "They take the port. They consolidate. They hunt me for the rest of my life." "I would rather be hunted in Geneva than executed in Gray Harbor," Cade shot back. They were both stuck. Cade was thinking like a bodyguard. Luca was thinking like a king. Both were about to lose. I looked at them, the soldier and the sovereign, locked in a stalemate, and the answer, cold and terrifying, clarified in my mind. "So let them win," I said. They both stopped, turning to stare at me. "Mara, this is not the time," Cade began. "You cannot run from them," I said, my voice gaining strength. "And you cannot fight them. They are a board of directors, not a street gang. They will just send more men, and more, until you are dead. They will not stop." I walked toward Luca. "They want you erased. They need to close the file on Luca Valerian so they can finalize their sea treaty. They need a body." Cade looked horrified. "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting," I said, my eyes locked on Luca's, "that you give them one." Silence. Luca's steel-gray eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in sudden, sharp calculation. He saw it. He saw the insane, terrifying logic. "You fake your death," I said, the words hanging in the sterile air. "Not a disappearance, not an exile, a death, public, final, and undeniable, a body they can take credit for." Cade was shaking his head, pacing. "It is impossible. They are not stupid. They will verify." "We will make it verifiable," Luca said, his mind already moving. "Pontoon 7. Cade stopped pacing. "The old fuel barge. It is scheduled for demolition." "Exactly," Luca said. "It is loaded with controlled charges. We leak my location. We make it look like an assassination, an accident, a catastrophic explosion. They get their victory. They close their file." "And you," Cade asked, "you just disappear." "I disappear," Luca said. "And in the power vacuum, the data we just released Shaw's laptop, Vex's ledger, it does its work. We let the city tear them apart while they are celebrating their victory over my ghost. It was the only plan, the most dangerous magic trick in the world. There was one last piece of business. I had to see my daughter." Luca came with me. The drive to the Lighthouse Club, the repurposed church, was silent. Eamon Pike met us at the heavy oak doors, his kind face etched with worry. "She is asleep." "I just need to see her," I whispered. We walked down a stone corridor. Her room was small, simple, with a round, stained glass window. She was curled up in a small bed, her stuffed rabbit clutched in her arms. I stood in the doorway, my heart feeling like it was being squeezed in a vice. Luca stood behind me in the hall, a tall, silent shadow. "She will be safe here," he said, his voice a low rumble, meant only for me. "When this is done, when I am gone, the wipe the slate order is on me, not you. The threat to you and Piper, it neutralizes. Vex will be gone. Shaw will be in prison. You will be free." "Free," I whispered. The word tasted strange. "Mommy?" A small, sleepy voice came from the bed. Piper was sitting up, rubbing her eyes. "Are you leaving?" "No, baby, I am right here." I rushed in, sitting on the edge of her bed, stroking her hair. "I heard you," she whispered, her eyes wide with a fear that cut right through me. "Uncle Luca, are you going away? Are you leaving?" She had heard him. She had heard the word gone. I looked back at Luca, his face a mask of sudden, profound pain. "Hey," I said, pulling Piper into a fierce hug. "Hey, listen to me. It is okay. It is a game." "A game?" she sniffled. "A magic trick," I improvised, my voice shaking. "A really big, complicated one, like hide and seek, for grown-ups, to make sure all the bad people go away so we can be safe." She looked past me, at Luca, who was frozen in the doorway. "But you promise he is not really leaving." I held her face in my hands. "I promise, Piper, it is just a game." It was a lie, wrapped in a technical truth, and it felt like swallowing glass. We returned to the station. Yana was in the bunker, all business. The emotional break from her betrayal had been cauterized. She was the coordinator. "The charges on Pontoon 7 are stable," she said, handing Luca a data chip. "It is a Class G explosive, heavy on concussion, low on fragmentation. It will look catastrophic, especially with the fuel reserves, but it will be contained. I have registered a shell company manifest. The boat is listed as yours, under an alias. This will be your coffin." "Juniper?" Luca asked. "I am ready." The hacker's voice came from the speaker. I have a back door into the BUI's alert system. The moment you are clear, I will flood their channels with audio of a catastrophic explosion and an unidentified body. The Syndic courts will have the news before the smoke clears." It was time. G-hour. Luca had to take a small, fast boat from the station's private dock to get to Pontoon 7, which was moored 2 miles out in the bay. He had to set the remote trigger himself. I found him in the engine room of the speedboat. The air was hot, heavy with the smell of diesel and oil. He was wiring the last connection to a satellite detonator. My hands were shaking. I was sending this man to his death. The man I had kissed in the dome. The man who had shielded me with his body. He finished his work. He saw me standing there. He saw the terror on my face. "Mara." He stepped away from the engine, wiping his hands on a rag, but the grease remained. He walked toward me. He did not stop until he was standing in my space, just as he had in the dome. He took my shaking hands in his. His were steady, warm, and calloused. He linked his fingers with mine. "I am here," he whispered, his voice rough over the thrum of the engine. He pulled me closer, gently. He rested his forehead against mine. We stood there, in the heat and the fumes, our hands locked together. I could feel his heart, a steady, solid beat. "Completely," he finished, "whatever happens." I rose on my toes, and he leaned down, and our mouths met. This was not the questioning kiss from the dome. This was not a negotiation. This was a claiming. It was desperate, and deep, and final. It was a goodbye. Just in case the magic trick failed, it was the taste of salt and metal, and the profound, aching confession of everything we had not been allowed to say. His black coat was heavy. He shrugged it off, letting it fall to the greasy steel deck. His hands found my back, pulling me against him until there was no air left, until I was molded against the hard lines of his chest. My fingers, trembling, found their way from his shoulders, up his neck, into his hair. I held on, anchoring myself against the man who was about to become a ghost. The kiss broke, but he did not let go. He pressed his face into my hair, his breathing ragged. "Mara!" he breathed, his voice a strained gasp. His hand slid from my back, down my side, his thumb tracing the line of my ribs. He stopped just at the hem of my shirt. He stopped at the boundary. Even now, even with the world ending, he stopped. He pulled back, just enough to look at me. His eyes were dark, the steel burned to a molten black. "When you say yes," he whispered, his voice rough with an emotion I could not name, "that is when I will take that step. Not before. Before I could find my voice, before I could breathe, before I could answer. A horn, deafening and sharp, blasted through the night, the signal. A freighter was passing. It was time. The spell shattered. We broke apart. He was the boss again. I was the partner. The emotions were locked down, the mission engaged. He grabbed his fallen coat, slinging it over his shoulder. He did not look back. "It is time to go to work," he said. I watched him go. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. I sat with Juniper in the bunker, watching a single dot on a radar screen. "He is clear," Juniper said, her voice tight. "Cade has him. The boat is empty. Detonating. Now." She did not show me the camera feed. She did not have to. A low, violent thump vibrated through the concrete walls of the bunker, a tremor that traveled miles across the water. "It is done," Juniper whispered. She typed, her fingers a blur. "I am leaking the audio. Mayday, mayday, explosion at Pontoon 7. I am flooding the BUI channels and..." Got it. The Syndic courts just got the alert. They are confirming the kill. They are celebrating. She turned to me, her young face pale. "The file on Luca Valerian is closed. He's officially and publicly dead." The funeral, as we had planned, was 2 days later. It was a memorial service, held on the docks. The press was there. The BUI was there. A contingent led by a different, colder man. Even a representative from the Syndic courts attended, to pay his respects. The harbor was thick with a cold, November fog. It wrapped around the pilings, muffling the sound. I stood in the front row. I had gone to the Lighthouse Club and retrieved Piper. She had to be seen. She had to mourn. She stood beside me, holding my hand, her face confused and sad. I did not weep. The press noted my profound shock. They called me the tragic survivor. I was not in shock. I was not tragic. I held my daughter's small, warm hand, and I stared into the gray, impenetrable fog. My eyes were dry, not because I was painless, but because my heart was a locked, guarded fortress. I was standing watch. I was guarding tomorrow. The celebration at the Meridian Hotel was, I heard, a sight to behold. The Syndic courts, believing their primary obstacle had been vaporized at Pontoon 7, were gathered in the same ballroom we had destroyed. They were toasting a new era of stability for Gray Harbor. "They are arrogant," Juniper's voice crackled in my ear. I was at the Lighthouse Club, in the bell tower, watching a bank of monitors. "They are toasting a ghost." "It is time," I whispered. In Gray Harbor City Square, the massive digital billboards, the ones that sold soda and bank loans, flickered. They all went black. The crowd in the square, sensing something, grew quiet. Then his face appeared. Luca Valerian, 30 feet high, his steel-gray eyes looking out over the city he was supposed to be haunting. He was not a ghost. He was a broadcast. "Citizens of Gray Harbor," his voice boomed, digitally amplified, echoing off the limestone buildings. "You were told I was dead. I was targeted for execution by the men and women who claim to be your guardians. They call themselves the Syndic Courts." The screen split. It showed the Black Ledger. It showed the video of Arden Shaw and Vex at the gala. It showed the BUI payroll, the offshore accounts, the signed "Wipe the Slate" order. "They are celebrating my death at the Meridian Hotel," Luca's voice continued, cold and clear. "But while they celebrate, we are taking back the truth." As the Syndic members in the ballroom began to panic, their phones blowing up, Cade made his move. He was not leading a team of killers. He was leading a team of dock workers, the men and women from the community aid line, the ones with families who depended on the port. They carried no lethal weapons. They carried bolt cutters and crowbars. They hit the Syndic's data archive, a nondescript building on the waterfront. "We are in," Cade's voice came over the comms. "We are seizing the physical servers." "And I am broadcasting the contents," Juniper added, her fingers flying. "The entire unencrypted archive of the Syndic courts, every bribe, every corrupt land deal, every single file. It is not going to the police. It is going to the public, right now." The city's infrastructure seized, then rebooted under a new authority, the truth. We watched on the monitors as Arden Shaw, attempting to flee his office, was met on the steps by his own superiors, men who valued their pensions more than their corrupt boss. They read him his rights, his face pale and slack with disbelief. We watched Dorian Vex, disguised as a deckhand, make a break for a waiting speedboat in the canal. "Yana," I said into the comms. "I see him. Mara," Yana's voice replied, cool as ice. "He seems to be in a hurry. What a shame the tide gates at the canal entrance are malfunctioning." On the monitor, we saw the massive steel barrier of the tide gate hiss and slam shut, trapping Vex's boat in the narrow waterway like a rat in a cage. I looked down. Piper was beside me, her hands clasped tightly around the paper star I had returned to her. She did not understand the bank ledgers, but she understood the faces. "Is the magic trick over, Mommy?" she asked. Professor Eamon Pike, standing behind her, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You see, Piper," he said, his voice soft, "truth is always stronger than the shadows. You just need someone brave enough to turn on the light." The final light was yet to come. I left Piper with Eamon and went to City Hall. The crowd from the square had become a sea of people. Thousands of them drawn by the broadcast. They were angry, confused, and electric. And then he walked out of the morning fog. Luca Valerian, alive in his black coat, He did not arrive in an armored car. He walked, alone. He walked up the stone steps of City Hall, not as a king, but as a citizen. He stood at the bank of microphones left by the scrambling press. The crowd went utterly silent. "My name is Luca Valerian," he said, his voice carrying in the quiet air. "For 10 years, I have operated outside the law of this city. I did so because the law itself was corrupt. Today, we have exposed that corruption. But my actions still have a cost." He placed a thick legal file on the podium. "I am here, today, to surrender myself for those activities and to offer a new path forward." He laid it out, a conditional plea. He would immediately liquidate 90% of his dark assets. That money, billions of it, would be placed in a city-run restitution fund to rebuild the communities his war had touched. The Valerian Consortium would be transitioned immediately into a fully legitimate, transparent maritime corporation. "And," he finished, his voice steady, "it will be subject to full, permanent community oversight. I'm not asking for your trust. I am asking to earn it." The silence stretched. It was a held breath, a city of 1 million people deciding. Then from the back, one person clapped, a single defiant sound, then another, then 10. It was not a cheer. It was a roar, the sound of a dam breaking. The BUI was summarily dissolved and reformed from the ground up. The syndic courts, their power exposed and their accounts frozen, evaporated in less than 12 hours. The sea treaty was canceled before lunch. The media swarmed him, a wall of cameras and microphones. I pushed my way through. I did not run. I walked. He saw me, and the world, the noise, the cameras, the entire city fell away. It was just us. "Luca," I said, loud enough for the nearest microphones to catch it. He looked at me, his eyes asking the question his pride would not let him voice. "What now?" I gave him my answer. For the city. For him. For me. "You chose to go public," I said, my voice clear. "I choose to stay." That was for them. I grabbed his hand, the one with the angular wolf tattoo on the wrist. I pulled him, hard, away from the microphones, away from the center stage, into the deep, quiet limestone alcove by the building's main doors. In the shadows, shielded from the cameras, I put my hands on his face. He was real. He was breathing. He was here. I kissed him. It was not the desperate, fire-fueled kiss from the engine room. It was not the questioning kiss from the dome. It was a foundation. It was quiet and sure, and it tasted like the fog in the future. His hands did not pull me. They did not grab. They simply found the small of my back, holding me, steadying me, a silent, unbending vow. Here, together. "Mommy." The moment broke. A small, joyful missile launched itself at our legs. Piper, having charmed her way past Eamon, wrapped her arms around my waist, then reached for Luca. She hugged us both, a tiny, fierce link, pressing her face between us. "Is the hide-and-seek game over?" she chirped, looking up at us. "Are we a family of 3 now?" I looked at Luca. He was not the boss. He was not the ghost. He was just a man, his eyes shining. He was smiling, a real, unguarded smile. I laughed, the tears I'd refused to shed at his funeral finally coming, hot and blurring the lights. "Yes, baby," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. 3, and a whole city. The court, under blinding public scrutiny, accepted the plea. It was unprecedented. The Valerian Foundation was born, its first act to permanently fund the Harbor Line Scholarium, making it free for every child on the docks. Luca Valerian was sentenced to 2,000 hours of community service penance paid in daylight, rebuilding the very port he had once ruled in shadows. Weeks later, we had our first peaceful night. The station was no longer a fortress. It was just home. The 3 of us, Luca, Piper, and I, were on the flat roof deck. Piper had her paper star map, the one from the Lighthouse Club, spread out. We lay on our backs, the city glittering around us, a city we had, in our own broken way, saved. "There," Piper whispered, her small finger pointing up. A shooting star, a single clean, white streak against the black. I felt Luca's hand find mine in the dark. He squeezed it. I made you a promise, he whispered, his voice so low, only I could hear it over the wind. In the engine room, that I would not take that step until you said yes. I am making a new one. He turned his head on the blanket, his eyes finding mine. I am done bending the law to get what I want, even for love. I smiled, a real, easy smile. We do not have to bend the laws, Luca, I whispered back. We will write decent ones, starting right here, in our home. Thank you so much for listening to our story. We would love to know where in the world you are listening from, so please comment below and share your thoughts. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, Mafia Boss Stories, and like this video. It would also mean the world to us if you could support us by hitting that hype button, so this story can be heard by even more people.